Hello and welcome to Engage Ed. I'm Carissa Martos. This is my sign name, and I'm hard of hearing. I grew up hearing, but my family knew some deaf people, and so I learned to sign from them, and also from my mom, who is a speech therapist and mostly signed English, but whatever. So my job is I'm a teacher of the deaf here in the state of Oregon. I'm a certified and credentialed teacher in bilingual, bicultural, bimodal deaf education. I've got a master's degree in it, which means I have some students who are only oral. They listen. They've either got hearing aids or implants or Bajas or whatever. I have some students who are deaf and they only sign. I have some students who do both, sign and talk. And I have some students who are either deafblind or are deaf plus or deaf with other disabilities. It runs a spectrum. But I've noticed for a while that there's not a lot of lessons that are set up for deaf students. I mean, there's some where it's like, oh yeah, this is about this specific deaf topic, but where's the lessons on English or the lessons about history or where are the lessons about math? Where's the explanation for that? Like, there doesn't seem to be much. It's a little strange, especially information that's signed, and there's not a lot of lessons that go with it. Very little. I mean, there's not nothing, but there's not a lot available for deaf kids. So, fine. I was having a discussion with a coworker whose name is A, and she's also got a master's degree in deaf ed, and she works with me and credentials here in Oregon. And so she has a deaf sister, and she's a little camera shy, so doesn't tend to show up as often. But we were having this discussion, and it was like, we need to do something. Like, I've found a few lessons that I've put up about how to write an essay, or about how to set up a paper, or how to read a story and figure out, okay, what's the outline for this? How do I write this down? But they're paper lessons, and they tended to be pretty broad because I used to teach general education. So the two of us were like, where are the videos to explain this to deaf students so they can just watch it and be like, oh, there it is in a native language, or for oral students to be able to, oh, okay, I can watch your mouth and it's captioned. Where's that information? Doesn't seem like there is much. Did you want to start doing that? We're not going to make any money, but do you want to? And she was like, yeah, no, we need to. It's important. So we set this up, and this is Engage Ed. So we started this business, I don't know, 6 months ago. And this week, we finally decided that beginning of 2023 here, this is going to be when we start putting out lessons and videos. And we'll share them with you. So, yes, please click the like or the subscribe or the join or the follow or whatever it's called that is specific to this platform. But also means we would like to hear from you. If you have something specific that you would like to share or questions you want to ask or something you'd like to tell us, that'd be great because we want to figure out how to better connect with specific kinds of students. And, like, for example, what's your best memory growing up? Your favorite lesson, deaf school, mainstream, whatever. What do you remember about, oh, this specific explanation helped how? Let me give you an example. I have a friend, and she was remembering growing up in a deaf school. Family didn't sign, but she was surrounded by ASL, and she remembers that she was, picking stuff up and doing really well, but she was like, English was awful. It drove me crazy. And she goes, I remember I couldn't remember why I couldn't figure out all of these specific rules. I know for sign, okay, you need, this is about time, and this is about place, and this is about people, and this is about, there's rules to follow for ASL, for movement or whatever. But, hand shape, and then hand placement, and then palm orientation, and all that, right? For what makes a sign, but there doesn't seem to be rules for English. Where's the lesson that explains that? I couldn't remember them. And she goes, I remember, and I was looking back, and I had a tutor. And I was like, hey, so I don't understand. Like, English doesn't like really follow its own rules. Like what's going on? Like, okay, pants, Pants, a pair of pants. But it's only one thing. Yes, I get that there's two legs, but what? As opposed to a bowl of cereal, it's full of cereal. There's so many different pieces of cereal. So why is it one cereal? And what she told me was my tutor turned and looked and went, "Yeah, no, you're right." What? No, you're right. There's there's no good rules for English. You're not forgetting. You're not misunderstanding. You're not confused. You're noticing English is a really complicated and difficult language. Why? Well, I have no idea what you mean. Let me see. An example. So in Spanish, right? Other people in the area will speak and use and read and write that, right? All of the letters sound the same and are pronounced the same no matter what word it is or where it is in a sentence. If they have to change it, they'll add what's called an accent mark, and you can know how to, oh, that word must look like this. And it follows very specific rules. English doesn't have that. What? Why? English isn't really as established or formal of a language, let's say, as some of these older languages. Okay, so you know ASL, right? It's part French, it's part taken from Martha's Vineyard sign, it's part taken from signs from the indigenous tribes that were in the area, and some signs just got made up at the American School for the Deaf, right? It all kind of mixes around. Yeah, I get that. Okay, English is the same. It's got different pieces from different languages, and it's sort of gotten put together. Like, we use, well, let's say, words from Spanish, and we'll take words that have a French basis too, and they're both Latin languages, so we use those. But we also use parts of the language that are from Greek, for example, and we use ones that are from different tribes that were here in the U.S., and we use words that are also from these different specific European groups and languages, and sometimes the rules for those words conflict. Example. So, you know that big bird that looks like a duck, but it's bigger and it's angry and it bites people? Yeah, a goose, right? Yeah. If one is called a goose, what if there's two? What's that called? Geese. Right. Okay, now, you know the big animal with the horns, the big antlers on it? It's big and it lives up in the north in, Canada or Alaska. Yeah? Yeah, no, I do. What's that called? It's a moose, right? So what's one called? Moose. Okay. What's two? Um, mooses, mooses, mooses. I don't know. It's the same. One is a moose. Two is a moose. Wait, why? Okay. Well, goose is from this specific European language, right? It's a word from a Latin-based language, whatever. Moose is from the language spoken by the people who actually lived with moose. It's their rules, and they're not going to be the same as some places never met them and pronounced things differently, as Europeans, for example. One moose, two moose, whatever, it's the same. She said, my opinion, honestly, is that it doesn't have to change in English because, and it's not important, because one moose, yeah, that's a threat. You need to avoid it. Two moose, wow, that's a threat. You need to avoid it. Five moose, wow, that's a threat. You need to avoid it. So 1, 2, 5, 12, whatever. One moose is, it's enough. She goes, ow, I remember thinking, oh my goodness, it's not my fault. I'm still learning and everything, but I'm not hearing it, and I'm not forgetting the rules I'm supposed to follow. It means that I need to be maybe a little more flexible, a little easier on myself. And that was a big turning point for me. And I went, oh, okay, that's what I'm looking for. That's the kind of story that's really important here. Because noticing that, yes, that kind of lesson where she's learning is great. But also how the tutor was meeting her where she was. It wasn't like, well, yeah, it's kind of how it goes, and you need to practice more so you don't keep screwing up. No, it was, oh, okay. What about this piece of history and this piece of language and this piece of culture and this is how it happened? Oh, that's the connection. So that's our goal here for the lessons and some videos. Yes, we'll have a lot of those. I think the first series is called Our Week in History, and it'll have discussions about something interesting that happened for each day of the week for that week in history. We'll post them up every week, and I'll do a deeper dive into one or two of them as we go. But also, we'll have lessons for people to use if you want to show it in class. They can watch it, okay, and then you print out the paper and they can do, all right, so what was your favorite fact for this week? Why? Where have you heard some of these stories before? Or you knew that one, okay, how? What's the worst part of this week from the facts? You decide your opinion, but you need to be able to explain. That kind of lessons we'll be providing as well, and we'll post those up there as well. We'll also have different lessons that are just kind of randomly spaced out. One for writing formal essays, for example, and one for reading poetry, and one for how to figure out how to do research and set that up, and one for, and I know it's terrible, but how to do citations. Those are sorts of things we're going to offer. So in English, in history, in those other things, yep, it'll be me. But science, math, it's not going to be me. I am absolutely inept. It is not my skill set. So we will be inviting people in, other deaf teachers, other teachers who sign, scientists, mathematicians, people who are just like, oh yeah, we can call them and ask, can you please come help and help us teach these so that we can express them and give you guys lessons that you can enjoy. So also, yeah, I mean, the two of us are running this business, but it's really connected with all of you and with deaf leaders and deaf mentors and in connections and partners, okay? So we will tend to add their names and their links if we're working with somebody on here so that you can see and go see what they do because that's important. And the two of us are not teaching sign. Let's be clear. She's hearing and I'm late deafened. We shouldn't be teaching sign. But that doesn't mean we can't teach in sign. So, yep, we're good. She's over here like, yeah, that's fine, I agree. All right, sure. Okay, that's the goal. So, welcome to January of 2023, and welcome to Engage at